Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys. Welcome. Sawadee. Nice to see everyone this morning. Today is our group learning program, and I'm going to be sharing with you guys a meditation so that you can be guided in a meditation and learn a bit about meditation and even do meditation this morning. And then I'm going to move into a talk about chapter 6 in this group learning program, which we meet each Sunday and Wednesday. I go chapter by chapter in this book. I do a talk each Sunday on a particular chapter in this book, and now we're in chapter 6, which is titled The Middle Way, Walking the Middle Way. This is a very simple teaching from the Buddha, but it's very profound when you apply it in your day-to-day life. It'll take me probably all of about 15 or 20 minutes to teach it to you, and then I'll explain to you how to apply it in your day-to-day life so you can experience the benefits of having learned this teaching and then applying it in your day-to-day life. So welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us as well. If you'd like to join for meditation, the way that we start is with some chanting to ease into the meditation. And if you'd like to join in the chanting, we have the chanting sheets on the table over there. You're welcome to help yourself to get one. We can even pass them around the room if you like. They're Pali chants. It's in the Pali language. This is the historical language of the teachings of the Buddha, but you'll see the English translations in there as well. And if you look at the English translations, you're going to see a lot of gratitude and respect and admiration for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think that the Buddha actually created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students, either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha doesn't walk around with arrogance and pride and ego and like, here, chant these things to me in order to respect me. That's not the way an individual would function. That is, a Buddha or an enlightened being wouldn't function that way. So I'm sure the Buddha didn't actually create these, but if you learn from a teacher how to move to this enlightened mental state where the mind is peaceful and joyful permanently, where you no longer experience any discontent feelings like anger and sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment. If you learn from a teacher how to do that, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you would probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. Because the Buddha figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state where the mind's peaceful and joyful permanently. And then he helped other people to learn how to accomplish that same mental state. So I suspect his students created this either during his life or after his death. The way that they used chanting during the lifetime of the Buddha was a way to commit the teachings to memory, because everything that he taught during his life was oral. So he would just teach, and then people would need to remember his teachings, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. It existed in China 2,500 years ago, but it hadn't quite made its way to that part of the world where the Buddha was, which is in Northeast India and Nepal. We might not think about writing something down as technology, but it's technology 2,500 years ago. And just like technology today gradually kind of moves through the world, that's the same thing that writing was doing. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, there wasn't the ability to write things down. So they used chanting as a way to commit these teachings to their memory. So every 2 weeks, they would come together and recite his teachings word for word for word. So when you're chanting these, you shouldn't think of it as a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship, or prayer, or anything like that. That's not what this is. What we're using chanting for nowadays is to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. We don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings, because we have books and audiobooks and videos and podcasts and all these kinds of things. But it does help you to get more benefit out of the meditation, because you're getting awareness of the mind, you're getting awareness of the breath, and those are things that you need as you're easing into meditation. You're going to need those. So if you're developing a little bit of that and exercising the mind with chanting prior to meditating, you'll actually get more benefit out of the meditation. Once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing you some guidance to help you along in the meditation itself, and you'll learn how to actually meditate through the guidance that I'm giving you. Then there's going to be this long period of time where it's just quiet. We're just all meditating together. You may hear occasional sounds in the environment, like a car going by or a bird chirping or a dog barking or something like this, because you can't have permanent silence. It's just not possible, because you live in an impermanent world. So if your mind craves permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll be annoyed or frustrated or agitated. But this is your own mind that's causing this. So you can meditate understanding that you're going to hear occasional sounds, because that's the impermanent nature of the world. So after we go through that period of time, we're all meditating together, everyone here and everyone joining us online. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some chanting, the same chants that we did going in. We'll do those coming out. And then that's where I'll start today's class and helping you guys learn about the middle way and how to apply that to your day-to-day life. So if you'd like to join, there's essentially 4 positions that the Buddha taught to meditate in. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking meditation. And I teach these at different times in different courses and retreats that I share, but oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. This is where they kind of start out. So I'll give you guys a little bit of guidance on the seated position so you'll kind of have that to be able to help you this morning. There isn't just one fixed way to sit. You can find whatever works best for you. You find what's comfortable. But what I'm going to share with you is just a little bit of guidance that gives you a couple of options that you can consider, because not everybody's going to be able to sit in exactly the same position. That's not possible because all of our bodies are different. But if you're on the floor or in a chair, on a wheelchair, on a bench or a sofa or something like that, I'll give you some guidance and some tips to kind of help you find something that's comfortable for you. Being on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This helps to soften your seat. And then you would like your legs to be lightly crossed. Whereas if they're real tight, then your body's going to have a tendency to impede the circulation, and now you're going to have pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and it allows the circulation to flow. So that might be an option that you consider. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap, and this is how he would meditate. But this isn't the only way to meditate. So if you find this comfortable, you could use this if you like. But there's other options here as well, because it's not about everyone doing it the same way. You can put your palms on your thighs or your knees. You can put your palms up. You might rest your hands comfortably in your lap. There's all kinds of different options here for you. So you find whatever's best for you. And then the same thing for anybody in a chair or a bench or a wheelchair, or anything like this. Sometimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, and then they just place their hands and arms wherever they like. But you can see me, I'm sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so you could easily sit that way too. There's many different ways to sit. There's not just one fixed position. The upper body is helpful if this is erect. If you have the sternum up and the shoulders back, it'll keep your mind attentive and alert during the meditation, because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. You're working to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and cultivate certain wholesome qualities in the mind. And you would like your mind to be attentive and alert when you're meditating. So by having the upper body erect, it keeps the mind attentive and alert so you can actively train it. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid with the upper body, your mind might be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect. And not only does this help keep the mind attentive and alert, but it makes it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose during the meditation. So again, we're going to ease into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join along in, and then I'm going to come back in with some guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Wat Tung Mahakawanhang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato สัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสคาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสตาตาวาปานุสรังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath. Either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, Cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Photang Bhagavanhang Abhivateyami Savakhato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakhato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusarang Bhoto Bhagavati. Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone here at the temple. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to all of you guys online as well. Welcome to our class today. Those of you guys that are out in the hallway, if you'd like to make your way in, we've got plenty of space up here in the front. You're welcome to come on in if you'd like. There's plenty of space, even wall space where you can rest your back up against the wall, which is premium. So feel free to make your way in if you'd like. As I mentioned, today's class is helping you guys to understand the middle way, walking the middle way. This is a very simple teaching from the Buddha, but it's very profound when you're actually applying it in your day-to-day life. But before we get into that, let me just share a few things with you guys that are going to help you to be able to be even more comfortable here at the temple. Here up in our temporary classroom, we have 2 bathrooms. With this first door here is a bathroom. You're welcome to use that at any time. And there's a door all the way at the back of the room, just as you're coming up the stairs. That's a bathroom as well. You can feel free to use these bathrooms at any time. Yeah, you guys can make your way up. We'll make space for you. Come on in. Welcome to our class. Come on in. So feel free to use these restrooms at any time that you like. You can just get up and use the restroom. There's restrooms outside the classroom too. If you go out to the parking lot, there's signs that you'll see that'll take you around to the main bathroom of the temple, so you can feel free to use those bathrooms as well. We have refreshments over here that is provided by our students. There's water, and there's oftentimes snacks that show up over there too. So if anybody would like a snack or something to drink, feel free to make yourself comfortable with any of the stuff that's over there. So the individual that we refer to as the Buddha, he figured out how to train his mind to get to this enlightened mental state. How to train the mind where you get to the point where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The mind in the enlightened mental state no longer experiences any discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. And this is accomplished through training of the mind. The mind experiences focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory because the mind's performing optimally at this point. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming because you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile in your relationships any longer. And you'll notice that they'll really blossom. They'll be at ease. Where right now, there's probably a bit of a challenge for you to experience that. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're not even in a bad mood anymore, that you're always in a good mood. The mind's bright and cheerful and radiant and uplifted because you've trained the mind to eliminate certain pollution in the mind that are causing it to experience these discontent feelings and the struggles and difficulties that one's experiencing in a day-to-day life. The Buddha discovered what's called the 10 fetters, these 10 individual pollutions. He referred to them as fetters because during his lifetime, if you were a criminal or you were a prisoner, they would attach a fetter to your ankle. What a fetter was a shackle and a chain and a ball, and they would keep you confined in this particular area like a field, where today we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells. Back during ancient times, they would attach a fetter to your ankle, and then they would just have you hang out in this field with other prisoners. And a shackle and chain and ball, this is called a fetter. So these 10 fetters or these 10 pollutions are hindering the mind from being able to experience that brightness and the radiance and the peace and the joy. And an individual continues to struggle in the world. They experience anger and sadness and frustration, annoyment, guilt and shame and fear and all these other discontent feelings that are being experienced in the mind. But you can actually opt out of this. You can choose to train your mind and get to the point where you're not experiencing that anymore. And one of the things that people need to come to understand in order to accomplish this is that it's not other people that is causing you to be angry. It's not the outside world that's causing you to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. This is what people firmly believe with a lack of wisdom. They will firmly believe that it's other people or some outside thing that's causing you to be angry or frustrated. But that's not the case, because if that was the case, nobody would ever be able to get to enlightenment, because there's 8 billion people in the world doing different things, and people aren't going to do things your way. So the Buddha trained his mind figuring this out, how to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state. And he did this by the age of 35. And then for the next 45 years, up until the age of 80, he shared his teachings, helping people to understand what he had independently verified and independently figured out for himself. Because that's what determines what a Buddha is that they've gotten to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. That's the first criteria of what makes a Buddha, is they get to enlightenment by themselves. The second thing is that an individual who's a Buddha will dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. And then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the 3 criteria of what make a Buddha, is they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people during their lifetime, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. And then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So the Buddha did this during his lifetime. From the age of 35 to 80, he actually taught, and countless people got to enlightenment, and countless people have gotten to enlightenment after his death as well. So he meets all three of these criteria. During his life, when he was teaching and he was helping people to understand how to get to this enlightened mental state, he talked about the middle way, and he describes this middle way, and this is how the mind essentially navigates its way to enlightenment. When he taught very core central teachings that you can learn, you can examine, you can investigate, you can then reflect on those teachings to independently verify them, and then you can practice them in order to integrate them into your life and train the mind and uproot these pollutions out of your mind. And this is what one would do on the path to enlightenment, is there's no belief in the path to enlightenment. You're not believing things and then hoping something good happens when you die. You're also not doing rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship. Even if you see those things associated with Buddhism, the Buddha never taught any of those things. So his teachings are all about training the mind and navigating to this middle way. And when he describes this middle way, he actually uses an analogy. He uses this kind of description of this instrument. He talks about this lute, and he talks about this stringed instrument. And there was a particular student, it was a female student who was ordained, who used to play this instrument in the past. And now she was ordained and she was studying with the Buddha. And he was asking her, and he was talking to this student, and he was saying, when this stringed instrument the string was real tight, did it play beautiful music? Did it play the way it was intended to play? And she replied, no, it didn't play beautiful music. And then he said, well, what about when the string was too loose? Did the instrument play well there? And she was like, no, it doesn't play well. And he's like, well, what about if you tune the string perfectly into the middle? Does the instrument play beautiful music? And she's like, yeah, that's when it plays the most beautiful music. The instrument plays the way it was intended to play. And the Buddha said, same thing with the human mind, that the human mind, when you're holding on to things too tight, you can't experience the peace and the joy that is the enlightened mental state. But when you have things too loose on the other side, your mind can't perform optimally there either. It's only when you come to the middle that the mind can perform optimally. And he provides this teaching of the Eightfold Path, which is the actual teaching that guides you to the middle way. This is a core central teaching that I taught last week. And if you haven't learned that with me, it's okay, because it's recorded on our YouTube channel, on our podcast. We have books and audiobooks that'll teach this to you. We have courses and retreats where I teach regularly, and all these are available to you at no cost, where this Eightfold Path is the middle way. It's teaching you how to come to the middle rather than to hold on to things real tight and wanting things to be a certain way, or being over here where things are real loose. Because what's causing your mind to be angry and frustrated and irritated is that the mind has craving, it's longing, it's yearning, it's wanting things to be a certain way. It's holding on to things really tightly. And when you get things the way you want, you get happy or excited. But when you don't get things the way that you want, the mind gets annoyed or frustrated or irritated or agitated or some other discontent feeling. You can see this for yourself. Remember, you shouldn't believe anything that I teach you. You shouldn't believe anything that I write in books or anything like this. Instead, you need to look at your own personal experience in order to be able to see the truth for yourself. You can take a situation where you've recently been angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed, and you can look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What the mind's doing in the unenlightened state is it's craving permanence. It's wanting things to be a certain way. And if you get things your way, you'll get happy and excited. But if you don't get things your way, you'll get angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So there was something that happened either this morning or yesterday or last week. There were some things that happened in your life where you were frustrated and you were annoyed and you were agitated. You can look at that situation and you can see for yourself that there was something you wanted. And if you would have got what you wanted, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, you got angry or frustrated or annoyed, or maybe you felt guilty or shameful or fearful or some other discontent feeling like this. And this is what the mind's doing, is it's holding on, it's craving, it's wanting things to be a certain way. I'll give you a couple examples that I think you can relate to. If you think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got when you guys first got together, you might have been so happy and so excited. You've got this new person in your life. They're showing you affection. They're inviting you out to dinner or to the movies. Maybe they're sending you text messages or calling you on the phone and checking in on you and making sure you're okay. Maybe you guys are having great conversations. Maybe you're going to the park and going on great walks, and wow, things couldn't be better. You maybe even are having sexual contact and having intimacy. Wow, so amazing, feels so great. Well, over time, as that relationship progressed, you had certain expectations of them. You wanted certain things from them, and they wanted certain things from you. They expected certain things from you. And if you got what you wanted, you were happy. And if this person didn't do what you wanted, you got angry or frustrated or annoyed. And then you guys ended up breaking up, and the relationship was over. And now you might have been even more angry and more frustrated. You might have felt lonely or bored. You might have been missing this person. And you might have actually thought it was your love that was causing this. Or you might have thought that you were caring too much. But it's not love and care that causes these painful feelings. What's causing the painful feeling is the mind was holding on, wanting this relationship to be permanent. The mind doesn't understand that it lives in an impermanent world. Everything around you is impermanent. The unenlightened mind craves permanence, wanting things to be a certain way permanently. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy and excited. And if it doesn't get what it wants, it gets these painful feelings like anger, sadness, and frustration. And for a period of time after you guys broke up, you were feeling maybe lonely or bored or missing this person, or you might have felt angry or frustrated. But at some point, your mind was like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it, and you let them go. Or if she would like to move to another part of the world, so be it, and your mind let go. And when your mind let go, that's where your peace came back, because you let go. And that's what this Eightfold Path is helping you to do, is train your mind to let go. And this is the middle way, is coming to the middle. Or let's take another example. Let's think back to when you were a child. Maybe when you were wanting chocolate and ice cream from your parents. And if they gave you your chocolate and ice cream, you were so happy and so excited. But when they didn't give you that chocolate and ice cream, you were angry or frustrated. I know I was, right? Because I wanted that chocolate and ice cream. And if I would have got it, I would have been so happy. And the mind was craving for this to be permanent. But we don't understand the impermanent nature of the world, that we can't have chocolate and ice cream every day. It's just not possible, right? So when the mind's craving permanence, it's going to experience discontent feelings. Think back to that nice car or some other object that you purchased. When you first got that brand new thing, you were so happy with it. You were so excited. But then when it got a scratch on it or started deteriorating, maybe you parked your car at a store, you went inside and you came out and you saw a scratch on your car. You maybe got frustrated or agitated or annoyed. You're not a bad person. You haven't done anything wrong. This is just what the mind does in the unenlightened state, that it craves permanence. When it saw that scratch and you got that frustration, you might have thought that the person who scratched your car is the one who's causing you to be angry. Or you might have thought that the scratch itself was causing you to be angry or frustrated. But what's causing you to be angry or frustrated in that situation is the mind's craving permanence. It's wanting this car to be permanently beautiful. Or here's an example from one of my students. One time a student contacted me. They've been studying with me for a few months. And they said, David, I know what you teach about the Buddha's teachings, that my mind is causing my own discontent feelings, but I'm sure my wife has caused me to be angry in this situation, and I need you to help me be able to see this better. And I said, okay, what do you got? They said, well, I was at home, I was hanging out, I needed to go to work, so I went to work and I came home and she had the house a wreck. She had all her stuff all over the house. She had this craft project everywhere. And I walked in and I got frustrated. She said, how did I cause my mind to be discontent in this situation when I wasn't even there? It was my wife who had her stuff all over the place. It wasn't me. I left for work. The house looked a certain way. And when I came home, it didn't look that way. And I got angry and I got frustrated. My wife should have had the house looking a certain way. And I said, there's your craving for permanence. You're expecting your house to look a certain way. You're craving for it to look this way permanently when you went to work. And now when you came home, it didn't look that way. All you experienced was change. That's impermanence. That's the nature of the world. Everything in the world is constantly changing. But if you crave permanence, when you're going off to work and you're thinking the house is going to look exactly the same when I come home, then when you come home and it doesn't look that way, you cause your mind frustration because you're craving for it to look a certain way. And it can't look that way permanently. It's just not possible. And with your wife's crash project all over the house, that's not permanent either. She's going to put it away, or maybe you even help her to put it away, right? But if your mind's craving permanence, you're going to be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. So it's coming to the middle way that we understand how to get to peace and we get to joy. Where if we didn't take care of our house at all and we could care less about how it looked and there was crumbs and dirt and food all over the place, that's not going to produce peace and joy. But if we hold on to this house and wanting this house to look a certain way permanently, we're not going to be able to get to peace and joy there either. So what we do is we come to the middle way. We take care of our house, we clean it, we do things, but we understand that it's going to deteriorate over time. That's normal, right? So you need to be able to find this middle way with every single aspect of your practice, every single aspect of your life. It's like a journey, like on this path here. You're taking this journey and you're trying to walk the middle way. And when you get to the middle, you're going to see that your mind is peaceful and it's joyful. You're going to notice that it's almost like you take a breath of fresh air, right? And it's not just with the mind that you're training. Yes, you're training your mind, but you can apply this simple teaching to every single aspect of your life, whether it's your finances, your relationships, you're taking care of your house, or any other thing like this. You can apply this idea of the middle way to this particular topics that you might be confronting in your day-to-day life. I'll give you an example. Let's just say, yeah, you bought a brand new house and now you've got this brand new house and you would like to take care of it. Well, if you were obsessive about this brand new house and every single little piece of dirt that hits the floor, you were right there with the broom to sweep it up, and you were obsessively trying to keep every little blade of grass in your front yard looking a certain way and painting every little tiny thing, you're going to go crazy. You're going to be frustrated and go mad doing that. But also, if you were over here where you could care less about how your house looked and it was just deteriorating in front of your eyes and you weren't doing anything to take care of it, you're not going to have a shelter to take care of yourself and be able to make sure you have a safe place to stay. So you need to come to the middle where you apply attention and effort and energy towards taking care of your house, but you also enjoy your house and understand that this thing is going to deteriorate, but you would like to apply effort to maintaining it. Let's take some other things. Let's take like a career. Let's just say you're in your career and you would like to advance in your career. If you have craving and desire and attachment and you're chasing and chasing and chasing and you're just trying to clamor to get to the top of your company, you're going to step on a lot of people and you're going to make a lot of enemies in doing this. And now people are going to be resentful. Even if you get to a particular position in your company, people are going to be resentful because you stepped on them in order to get to this higher position, because you're craving and you're chasing and you're making all these unwise decisions because you just want that higher position and that more money. But also, if you were over here on the other side, where you could care less about your career and you weren't really making wise decisions to maintain your skills and abilities and make wise decisions about the types of jobs and companies and positions that you take, if you weren't paying attention to that stuff, you're not going to be able to advance in your career there. So you'd like to come to the middle, where you're applying wise decision making towards advancing your career, that you're getting new skills, that you're building good relationships with your coworkers and your bosses and your business partners and people like this, and even your competition, that you're gradually making wise decisions towards advancing, but you're not chasing it and chasing it and chasing it. You're just gradually making wise decisions in that direction. Let's take something from the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha teaches generosity, that it's wise for us to practice generosity, where we're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return. And what this is doing is it's helping to train your mind to let go. Like the meditation we just did is training your mind to let go, and practicing generosity is training your mind to let go too. But you even need to practice generosity from the middle way. Whereas if you were giving excessively, where you were giving your time, effort, energy, and resources, and you were depleting what it is that you have, you wouldn't have the basic needs of what you need in order to sustain your life, because you're out there practicing so much generosity. But also, if you were over here where you were never practicing generosity, your mind's going to be quite selfish, and you're going to be self-centered, and you're not willing to share with others, and your mind's going to be holding on to things too tight, right? So you need to be able to find this middle, even with something like generosity that the Buddha teaches, is to practice generosity from the middle way. And then once you find that middle way with something like generosity or any of these other things, it's going to shift and it's going to change. That's why I've got this picture of this trail that's kind of moving around, because the middle way, we might think that it's like straight down the middle and it's a straight trail right to the mountain. And that's not the case. That when you find your middle and all these different topics in your life, it's going to shift and it's going to change, right? So taking something like generosity, someone might be able to give, let's just say $1,000 a month to an orphanage, right? And maybe they're pretty wealthy and they've been making a lot of money, and they can give this $1,000 a month to this orphanage, right? But now, and that's their middle. Let's just say that's their middle, right? Because they're making quite a bit of money. But now let's just say things change in their life, because things are going to change because of impermanence. Maybe they've lost their job. Or maybe their kids are going to college, or maybe their parents are now elderly and they need to take care of their parents. So they don't have that excessive amount of income anymore. So maybe they need to throttle that back to maybe $100 a month or $200 a month or something like that. Whereas if they hold on to this $1,000 a month that they're giving to the orphanage, they're going to deplete their resources. So even though $1,000 a month might be the middle for that particular person in any one given situation, it's going to change, and they need to fluctuate that as they make their way forward in life. And this goes for all the other aspects of your life too, whether it's your career or your personal relationships or things like this. You might find at different times in your life, you're spending more time focused on your career, where other times in your life, you're spending more time focused on personal relationships. You're going to need to ebb and flow with this middle way, because once you find the middle way on any one given topic, you'll feel peace and you'll feel joy. You'll notice like, it's like the mind took a breath of fresh air in terms of where you live, what type of job you have, the amount of money that you're making, the types of friends that you've cultivated, all the different things in your life. You'll be like, this feels very peaceful here. But then it's going to change because of impermanence. So you're going to need to be attentive to what you're doing in all these different areas. And now you're going to need to ebb and flow with what it is that you're doing in your day-to-day life. Right? So this is the middle way. As I mentioned to you, it's very short, very easy to teach it to you, but the real profound nature of this teaching is when you apply it. This is probably one of the most simple teachings of the Buddha, is understanding the middle way. But it's one of the most profound when you're applying it in your day-to-day life. His other teachings sometimes are very technical and very detailed, and you need to really dive into them and sink your teeth into them, investigate them and examine them. This isn't one of those teachings. This teaching is very simple, very basic, very straightforward. Where it becomes profound is when you apply it to any aspect of your life, whether it's having hobbies and activities or work and career. You need to balance your life. You know, we talk about this in modern society. A lot of times people talk about, you got to live a balanced lifestyle. You got to live a balanced lifestyle. You got to live a balanced lifestyle. And someone might say, well, what's a balanced lifestyle? Who determines what a balanced lifestyle is? You do. Your balanced lifestyle is going to be determined on you and based on your situation in any given day or any given moment. And then when you find that middle, that balance, then you've got to ebb and flow with it. Okay, so this is the middle way. Finding that middle and then understanding that it's going to change and balancing your life so that you're not holding on to things really tight and being obsessive about things, but you're also not lackluster and lazy and complacent either, but you come to the middle and you gradually work towards your goals and objectives through wise decision making rather than chasing after these things. If you guys have questions here about what I've shared, because this is everything I'm going to share with you guys today. Typically, I'm talking for a good hour and then opening up to questions, but today, this is everything I have to teach you guys. It's very simple. If you have something you would like to ask, we have microphones here in the white bowl. You can just get a microphone. You can pass them around. You can press the gray button on the microphone and the lights will come on. And then you just hold it up to your chin and I'll be able to hear you here. And then the people online will be able to hear you as well, because we have people joining us online. point. And if you were talking here without a microphone, they wouldn't be able to hear you. And you can actually take these microphones back with you to your seat because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question. And then for those of you guys online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like just by unmuting your microphone. Do you guys have any questions about anything I've shared today? Yeah.
Thank you, David. From some of your previous talks, talking about at the time that the Buddha lived, and his journey towards enlightenment, that there were people practicing extreme spiritual practices, physical deprivation, physical pain, etc., etc. And I think from what you've said, even the Buddha did some of this stuff at various parts of his journey, but then sort of found this middle way. It seems that we're in a similar environment today, that if you go on YouTube, which I do a lot, and you Google this spiritual practice and doing that spiritual practice, there can be a tendency to get sort of, I got to do more extreme, like why do a 10-day silent retreat when I can do 30 days? Why do a silent retreat when I can do silent retreat in darkness? Why do silent retreat in darkness when I can do silent retreat in darkness and fast at the same time? You know what I mean? There's this tendency out there to
The batteries are impermanent. Yeah. I think we haven't had anybody changing our batteries recently.
Yeah. So you probably get the drift that there is this menu of activities out there, all claiming to, and I'm not aspiring any sort of negative views to anyone, that do this and do this more and do this more, and you will reach this spiritual height or spiritual experience. And so I guess the middle way comes in here, that of trying to develop a daily practice for ourselves. Yes, I don't know. I guess the question is, you want to just sort of comment on that of sort of using the middle way to sort of navigate with our own daily spiritual practice, which we're trying to develop.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Steve. So something that I've talked about in the past related to the life of the Buddha is that he was a prince destined to become a king, and he was living in the royal palace, and he had a life of luxury, that he had all the royal riches you could imagine because he was the first son of a king. And he was living this life of entertainment. There was lots of entertainment, wonderful food and fabrics, and beautiful women bathing him from when he was a child, and all through his life, he had all these amazing things that were available to him. And then when he left the royal palace, he went out into taking up training with two individual teachers. And these teachers were teaching him to hang himself upside down from trees, lay on beds of nails, starve himself, pierce his body with metal implements. Basically, he went from the royal palace, living this life of luxury, to swinging all the way over to the other side. And he did that for 2 years. And eventually he realized that didn't lead to enlightenment. So he went off on his own. And he spent time by himself in the forest for the next 4 years. And this is how he ultimately got to enlightenment. He still came in contact with people because he was needing to get food, and they were donating food to him to be able to eat. But for 4 years, he trained his mind on his own. So he realized this middle way when he was actually starving himself and he was right on death's doorstep, that this child and this mother brought him some rice, and they begged and pleaded with him to eat some rice. And he realized that he hadn't been living in the middle way, that when he was in the palace, he was living this life of luxury, and when he left, he was living this life of asceticism, where he was disparaging the physical body, causing pain to it, because that was the thought during his lifetime, that the way to get to enlightenment was to cause physical pain to the body. And if you could overcome that, then you would get to enlightenment. And this isn't true. And as Steve is pointing out, you'll see some of this even in today's society. Even asceticism, you'll see some people doing this kind of stuff where, they'll say, if you're in a meditation position and you feel pain, just breathe through the pain, right? And that's not what the Buddha actually taught. That's not the middle way. What you're describing, Steve, this is craving, right? It's like, as you mentioned, like, okay, why should I go to a 10-day retreat when I go to a 30-day retreat? Why go to a 30-day retreat when I go to a 30-day retreat with no air conditioning or whatever, right? And you just on and on and on and on and on. It's like one-upping, right? What's important is to realize, what is it that's going to help you get to enlightenment? And that retreat itself, whatever retreat, no matter where it is, even if it's one of my retreats, it's not going to help you by itself to get to enlightenment. Going to a 10-day retreat in silence or a 30-day retreat in silence, that by itself isn't going to produce enlightenment for you. But it's what you experience in that retreat that then you take home with you, that's what's going to help you. Is if you develop a regular daily practice, a daily life practice, this is what's going to help you get to enlightenment. Because whether you've meditated for the next 10 days or not isn't going to determine whether you get to enlightenment. The determination of whether you get to enlightenment is, can you meditate over the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years? Can you develop a life practice where you're consistently learning, growing and developing and training your mind? So going into a retreat, and particularly a silence retreat, since you brought that up, that by itself isn't going to produce enlightenment. It's when you're in that silent retreat, what is your mind craving? What are you longing and yearning for? Do you really want that special cup of something that you drink every morning? Are you missing your pillow and your soft, comfy bed? Are you missing that certain meal that you normally have? That craving, desire, attachment, that longing, yearning that you experience when you're in the 10-day retreat, that's what's helping you to see, my mind is craving something here. I need to let that go. And that's where the real work becomes. Is so the 10-day retreat is just kind of giving you an opportunity to strip away the things that you're normally close to. And now you can see, what is your mind actually longing, yearning for, so that when you leave the retreat, now you can start peeling some of those things away. It doesn't mean you have to do without them forever. It just means you need to train your mind to stop craving it. So this happened during the lifetime of the Buddha, where there was a student who came to the Buddha, who had been recently studying with the Buddha. And he said to the Buddha, like, hey, I want to go out into the forest, because that was a common thing for people who are more advanced in the teachings of the Buddha, is they would go out into the forest and they would live in the forest. And this was like basically a retreat. It was a silent retreat where they would be there, they would be meditating, and they would be training their mind. And this new student came to the Buddha and was interested in going off into the forest. And the Buddha's like, nah, just stay here with the community. You'll do much better if you just stay here and you learn the teachings. And the student's like, no, I really want to go. I want to go to the forest. They were so excited. So students might come to me now and be so excited to go to that silent retreat, right? Well, what the Buddha was sharing with them is he gave him this story. He said, imagine that there's this really strong river with a strong current. And there's this big bull elephant that goes down into the current and into the river, and it's playing in the water, it's frolicking in the water, it's bathing in the water, it's having a good time. And then it actually comes out of the water on the riverbank, real sure-footedly walks up the riverbank, and now it's out of the river. And while this was going on, there's like this rabbit or this hare, this cat that's watching the elephant. It was like, wow, that looks really good. I think I want to go do that. So this rabbit or this hare, after the elephant comes out of the river, the rabbit or the hare goes into the river and it gets washed away right away, right? Well, the moral of the story is that the individuals who are going off into these silent retreats and things like this, what would be better for you is to make sure that you've learned the teachings really well. Because when you're in that silent retreat, your mind's going to be having all kinds of different experiences. You're going to be having craving and longing and yearning. You're going to be missing that special pillow that you have at home. You're going to be missing that certain cup of whatever that you drink each morning. And if you don't have the tools and the techniques of how to deal with that in that 10-day silent retreat or that 30-day silent retreat, you're not going to be able to get the real benefit that you need. When you go to prison, they put prisoners in isolated confinement. They call it the hole. They do this for punishment, right? Where you're all by yourself in a jail cell, basically 24 hours a day with no contact with the outside world. And this is punishment that they do because people's minds essentially implode on itself. And they actually have laws that they have a limit that you can only do this for a certain amount of time, right? So going off to the silent retreat, sometimes people are like, oh, wow, look at that. It looks so beautiful. It's the next new shiny object waiting around the corner. Oh, it's that bull elephant that they see going down into the water. But in reality, it can actually be detrimental to somebody. Your mind can kind of implode on itself if you don't have the tools that you need to be able to skillfully work in that retreat to get the most benefit out of it, so that then when you come out of the retreat, you have a well-developed practice. Because the way life is in your day-to-day life with your mobile phones, the YouTubes, everything that you have available to you at your fingertips, your life is like wide open. You can access anything and everything that you like. When you go to these silent retreats, it's like going all the way to the other side where everything's closed down, right? You don't have your phone, you don't have your Wi-Fi, you don't have your comfortable pillow and your comforter and all those other things. You're swinging all the way to the other side. And when you come out of that retreat, you're swinging all the way back to life wide open. And that's why I don't teach silent retreats. The way that I teach retreats is I teach them from the middle way. We have active retreats where you learn for about 3 hours in the morning. And then in the middle of the day for 6 hours, we go out as a community and we do activities in the community. We go visit orphanages. We go to elephant sanctuaries. We do other things like this. And then we come back in the evening and I teach for another 2 hours in the evening. So it's an active retreat where we're practicing the teachings. So if you're completely silent and everything's cut off from you, and then you go, well, wham, right back into the world, you haven't really developed a sustainable practice to be able to learn and implement the teachings on a day-to-day life. You need to be able to get more training and more development than just 10 days a year or 10 days every 2 or 3 years in a retreat. You need to build a life for yourself where you're kind of trickling the teachings into the mind little by little by little. I know that you guys know that I don't drink coffee anymore, but drip coffee. When there's drip coffee, it's really good quality because it's dripping through those coffee grounds and absorbing the quality of the coffee. Well, it's the same kind of thing that you would like to drip the teachings of the Buddha into your mind little by little by little. And that's why I have a program like this where each Sunday I come together and I just teach a little bit, maybe for an hour or so. And then even like reading this book that we have, I suggest students only read it for 10 to 20 minutes a day. You might think that you could sit down and read for an hour or 2 or 3. This isn't really wise because what you're looking to do is you're looking to gain an understanding of the teachings through examining and investigating them. But then you need to independently verify them to see if they're true. And then you need to integrate them into your life and practice them. And if you're reading for an hour or 2, there's so many things that you're coming in contact with, you're not going to have the ability to examine it, to reflect on it, to verify it, and practice it because it's too much. It's kind of like taking a big bite of pizza. You would like to take smaller bites. So if you're reading just 10, 15, 20 minutes a day from a book like this, if you're doing some meditation for 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more and gradually building up to that, and you're consistently developing your practice over a long-term period, that's what's going to produce enlightenment. These short little bursts of going away to a retreat, that's not going to produce enlightenment. Oftentimes when you go away to a retreat, whoever you're learning from, you don't have access to them afterwards, where you're going to need consistent ongoing training from a teacher, a dedicated person that's going to help you. A Buddhist teacher is essentially like a tour guide. We're pointing out for you the things that you need to learn and you need to grow and you need to develop, but it's you that's doing the individual work. Another way to think about a Buddhist teacher is almost like a therapist or a counselor or a life coach, that we're somebody who gets to know our students really well. We get to understand your life and what's going on in your mind. And then we're able to share teachings with you that are going to help you and guide you along the path. And you need that consistent, ongoing guidance in order to really make your way to enlightenment. And you're going to need to be able to build that consistent practice where you're regularly training your mind through coming to classes and meditating and all these kinds of things. So You need to be able to identify that these kinds of things that you're describing is craving. The mind just wants more and more. It's not happy with a 10-day retreat. It needs a 30-day retreat. It's not happy with a 30-day retreat. It needs a 30-day retreat in silence, or with fasting, or with no air conditioning, or this. It just keep one-upping this. And this is just the mind craving. Where in reality, as you advance, maybe 2 or 3 years, 4 years into your practice, you've stripped away a lot of your cravings. You would like to go to a retreat, that's an ideal time to go to a retreat, because you've already learned the teachings really well. You've stripped away a lot of your attachments, and your mind's quite peaceful and you're quite joyful. But there might be some dust in the corners that you don't quite know is there. So now you put your mind into a situation where your phone's gone, your comfortable bed is gone, the food that you normally eat is gone. All these things are gone from you. And now you can look at the mind and see, what am I craving? What am I longing, yearning for? And now when you expose that in 5 days or 10 days, that's really all you should need. It's just a 5 or 10 day retreat. And once you see what your cravings are, then when you come out of the retreat, now you can skillfully work with that. It's like, that special pillow, I'm really craving that. I really wanted that during the retreat. So you know what? I'm going to go home and I'm going to set that pillow to the side, and I'm going to train my mind to sleep with this other pillow. And now that I have this other pillow and I get trained to sleep with that, and I can see that my mind no longer craves that other one, well, then I'm just going to bring that other one back just because it's much more comfortable. But I'm not craving it anymore. I can sleep with it or I can sleep without it, and I'm perfectly content and perfectly peaceful. So when you get exposure in these retreats of what your mind's craving, you go home and you start peeling those things away. But then in some situations, you can bring them back because there's no harm in sleeping with that particular pillow. You would like to just get to the point where you're not craving it and clinging to it and holding on to it. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Galit has a question. Each question that you guys ask, it doesn't take me that long to answer it. It was just this particular question was more in depth.
In a world, in a Western world that is employers in work world, okay, where the demand on employees is more and more and more every single year, or the employers are cutting back on finances, so there's less employees, and they're demanding their people to pick up more, and to or if there is in certain healthcare professions, there is a productivity level, so where therapists or doctors or nurses or anyone in the healthcare field are expected to pick up more patients per day, to see more people per day, to be more productive. Mm-hmm. How does one find the middle way and survive that and make a living?
Sure. It's important to recognize these types of expectations that other people have of you. It's their expectations, and you don't have to subscribe to those expectations. If you're in an environment where that's commonplace, and if you don't fulfill those expectations, you're going to be fired. Best to just leave that environment and find some place that doesn't have that. Because the last thing you're interested in doing is adopting other people's expectations of you. And there's comfortable work environments like that the bosses and the managers and the directors and the VPs, they are interested in you being you, and you do your thing. And that's actually what they're hiring you for, is that they're not going to put this template of expectations on you and try to control you. There are places like that. I worked in some of those places as I was going through my career. So you got to find the right environment for you. And that's where you'll know that you're in the middle, because you can come outside of your skin and you don't have to feel confined and like you're being bombarded with expectations from other people. Because if you're in that kind of situation, it's going to be very uncomfortable, and you're never going to be able to get to the peace, because people are constantly pressuring you to do it their way. And not only in a work environment would you not be interested in that, but even in a personal environment. If you're in a relationship with a certain life partner or somebody like this, and somebody's putting a lot of expectations on you and trying to control you of what you should or shouldn't be doing, it's best to leave from that relationship, or at least talk to that person and try to help them see that them putting expectations on you and controlling you isn't going to lead to you guys being peaceful and joyful as a couple. And if you can work together and this person can understand that they need to stop putting expectations on you and you're not putting expectations on them, you guys can get to the peace and the joy. But ultimately over time, if you've tried to work this out and they're just keep bombarding you with expectations, it's best oftentimes to just move on from the relationship. But if you've got somebody that you're more committed to and you guys can work these things out, then you can work it out where you guys can learn to not put expectations on each other. And this would be a deeper practice of true love. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Okay. I have a question regarding habits, because some of them are healthy habits, like exercising, for example. But you said it's healthy to, from time to time, to break those habits. Would it be a good idea? Like, for example, if we, let's say we have exercising routine, from time to time, change something in order not to be attached? Or, for example, maybe traveling is a good way to break some habits, our routines. So what do you think about that? Like, even if we have healthy habits, is it a good idea to stop doing things from time to time in order not to be attached?
Yes. So this is a great example of the middle way with exercising. Like, let's just say somebody was exercising 6 days a week, right? And they're exercising for maybe 2 hours a day, right? And this might be someone who's pretty committed to improved health. Well, that's great and that's wonderful for that person, and that might be the middle for them when they're in their 20s or 30s. But as the body ages, they're not going to be able to sustain that level of exercise throughout their entire life. So they need to understand that this exercise is impermanent. And if now their mind is attached to it, meaning that they're forming their inner feelings on this exercise, they will get frustrated and irritated and annoyed when they're not able to do it. So let's just say they wake up a little bit late one day and they don't get their workout in. They'll be grumpy, they'll be irritable, they'll be annoyed, they'll be frustrated. They might go around the world and being unskillful and damaging their relationships when they're talking to people in unkind and unfriendly ways. So a better thing to do if you see something that you're doing regularly like that is, hey, that's great. You should continue to exercise if that's something that someone's doing, but every once in a while, introduce some impermanence into this so that your mind doesn't have an opportunity to grab onto it and hold onto it. So holiday is a good way to do that, like you said, or even just, even if you're at home and you're at home for multiple years, maybe you work out most mornings at 8 a.m., right? But now maybe you change it. And maybe sometimes you work out at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, or maybe sometimes you intentionally skip your planned workout so that your mind doesn't have an opportunity to hold on to it. So when you introduce some impermanence into these certain healthy habits, it ensures that your mind's not holding on to it, but then you can still do these healthy things because it's wise to do so. And then now that's your middle way where you've trained your mind that, hey, I can do these things, I can do the exercise, but I know my mind's not attached to it because when I do it, I'm completely fine with that. But when I don't do it, I'm completely fine with that too. But I'm choosing to do it because it's a healthy and a wise thing to do. Mm-hmm. Any other questions you guys have? Yes, sir.
Sorry. Hi, thanks. I have a question about people's mental state nowadays. I felt like as I grow older, everyone around me, like my friends, including myself, are experiencing some kind of a mental crisis, and we need to find ways to refine ourselves and deal with the situation. So I'm wondering, why is that? Is that because the error and the modern society? Thank you.
You're asking me why do you experience mental challenges?
Yeah, I felt like just more and more people are experiencing this.
Oh, okay.
And, why is that?
Sure. So any kind of mental challenges that an individual has, for the most part, is all being caused from an untrained mind. And you can see this more and more clearly when you study the teachings of the Buddha and you practice them to be able to see the results. In today's society, a lot of people think that when someone's experiencing mental challenges, that it's like a brain defect, or it's a medical issue, or it's a disorder. And what you'll come to understand if you train your mind very closely with the teachings of the Buddha, that this isn't actually true. When people are experiencing depression or bipolar, or even things like schizophrenia, bulimia, anorexia, and all these kinds of things, the struggles that they're experiencing is real. It's a real struggle to experience those kinds of symptoms. But the cause of this isn't that the brain is defective or anything like this. It's just that the mind is untrained. So for example, let's just take a simple one like an eating difficulty, where somebody is having what's referred to as anorexia or bulimia. This individual's mind is craving to look a certain way. They have a certain image in their mind of what beauty is, and they're craving and longing and yearning to get to that. And they think that the way to do that is to either starve themselves or have themselves to vomit, right? Or let's take somebody who's experiencing depression. This is an individual who has a lot of sadness, deep, deep, deep sadness. This is because the mind is craving certain things about their life and wanting their life to be a certain way and wanting certain aspects of their life to be a certain way, and it's not that way. And now their mind is experiencing the sadness because they're not experiencing the life that they want, for example. So you can go through each one of these mental challenges that people experience, and you can see that the challenges, the mental anguish that they're experiencing is 100% real. But what people are being taught that the problem is this brain defect, so they're taking medicine, but they never actually really get well. And this is the unfortunate thing about the Western world, is that these teachings of the Buddha haven't really yet made their way to the Western world, even though people are dabbling with Buddhism here and there in a lot of Western countries. They haven't really deeply penetrated into the actual teachings of the Buddha to be able to understand them so that they can get the benefits and the results. So if an individual learns and grows and develops on this path, they can see that the symptoms that they refer to as things like bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anorexia, bulimia, and all these other things, they can eliminate all these symptoms through training of the mind. And now, because we're so far away from the life of the Buddha 2,500 years ago, and people haven't really understood these teachings, we see a lot of mental challenges in the world, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And this is how you know that the real solution isn't just medication. Even though we might need medication for acute situations, this isn't the ultimate solution, because if that was the ultimate solution, then we would see mental health getting better and better, because we've been doing this now for a good 50 to 100 years or more. And if this was an actual problem that we've discovered, that the human mind is defective or the human brain is defective, and we found the solution, then we would see that the mental health of society would just be getting better and better and better. But that's not what we see, that it's actually deteriorating more and more and more. So by learning and practicing these teachings, that's what's going to actually help people to train their mind and get to a better results in their life.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we have something coming in here on Zoom. Let me see what we've got. Mark's asking a question in regards to meditation. I've recently started doing my transcendent meditation alongside mindfulness meditation. I have found the mind is not as calm since adding additional form of meditation. Am I right in thinking that the meditation the Buddha teaches is more about training the mind instead of blissful sinking into feelings? Mark, the reason why you're experiencing that unsettledness in the mind now that you've added in a new meditation is because the mind is experiencing impermanence related to meditation, and the mind doesn't like impermanence. Whenever you're doing something different, the mind's going to crave permanence. So whatever your meditation practice was in the past, now that you've made changes, your mind's like, no, I don't like these changes. But these changes are actually really helpful for you. I don't know transcendent meditation, or even if I'm pronouncing that correctly, I don't know that at all. But from what you're sharing with me, that you're taught to sink into your feelings and things like this isn't actually going to produce enlightenment. So if you would like to talk with me privately, we can talk about what you're doing in that meditation, because oftentimes these new meditations that people are teaching are actually taking you in the opposite direction of enlightenment. And if that's the case, these two meditations are actually at odds with each other and fighting each other. And there's almost this internal war within your own mind. So you're going to need to be able to understand the truth of what type of meditation to practice and why. Because even though today I just did meditation with you guys, there's times that I teach meditation and the reason why behind this and what you're actually cultivating, because you need to understand that in order to understand why the meditation is designed the way it is. Because it sounds like what you're doing with that other meditation is actually going in the opposite direction of enlightenment, and you're not interested in doing that if you would like to get to the mental state of enlightenment based on what the Buddha actually taught. Mark has some more here. He says, also, is it okay to turn negative things, situations into positive outcomes? Or is it best to be non-reactive to negative situations? Both of those things are actually true, Mark. You would like to not be reactive in any situations that you're in. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're not reacting to situations, you're responding. You would like to respond wisely to each individual situation. When there's craving in your mind and you're having some experience, the mind will want to hurry up and react and do something very quick and very rapidly. But if you can step back and you can restrain your mind and you can think through your decisions, now you can implement a wise decision that's going to resolve whatever challenge that you're having. Whereas if you react in situations, it's typically not going to be based in wisdom, and you're going to make the situation worse. So you'd like to take your time and think through your decisions, make a wise decision, and experience the improved results because of it. And then also, when you're having some negative situation, it's helpful to look at the positive side of that and figure out what is the wisdom that you need to learn in that situation so that you can make different decisions so that it'll lead to different outcomes. If you continue to make those same decisions, you're going to keep experiencing the same unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. You would like to get to the point where you can see those negative things, you understand what's causing them, you understand the decisions you made that led to those things, and now you can make improved decisions that is going to now lead to improved results for you, wholesome results. So in each one of these negative situations, as you describe them, you would like to cultivate wisdom. And now when you cultivate wisdom, you can make different decisions, and now you'll experience an improved outcome for the future rather than continue to experience these same unwholesome results that you're experiencing before. Because if you keep making the same decisions over and over and over again without the cultivation of wisdom, you're going to keep experiencing the same results. But if you can cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, you'll experience different results. Okay, any other questions you guys have? Yes, sir.
I have a question which is similar to the one.
Oh, your battery's gone. We've got some more mics. You got it?
Yeah. But still, confused me recently. As I gradually came to understand impermanence and learn the methods mentioned by David, mentioned by Buddha, I tried to show unconditional love. But at that time, people around me, like my parents, good friends, and girlfriend, still love me in a kind of conditional way. They want me to do certain things to get them out of pain. Then what should I do? Should I try my best to make them understand what Buddha say and David say so as to truly relieve their pain? Or should I first protect my own energy and keep a distance from them, or even end the relationship temporarily? Does it show that I am also a conditional loving person who only shows love when someone else have unconditional love to me? In other words, what should I do to be able to express my unconditional love while avoiding being controlled and having expectations put on me? How can I walk the middle way in this situation?
Sure. So each one of these situations are going to be different. There's not just one permanent answer to any of these kinds of situations. The thing you need to first do is understand what unconditional love is. What unconditional love is love without any expectation of anything in return. It's unconditional love, that you don't want anything from this person. In the unenlightened state with a lack of wisdom, craving, desire, attachment is masquerading as love. For example, with a life partner, we might meet somebody, we might spend a few months with them, and we get to a point where we say, I have fallen in love with you, and I want you to be with me because you make me happy. Right? And now we go through that relationship, and then we get to the end of the relationship and we say, I need to break up with you because I don't love you anymore. I've fallen out of love with you. What's really happened here is not love. There might be love in there, but what's really happened is craving, desire, attachment. That at the beginning of the relationship, this person was doing everything you wanted them to do. And you said, hey, you're doing what I want you to do. You're meeting my expectations. I'm going to say I love you. And now, as long as you do what I want you to do, I will say I love you, and I will act like I love you, and I will function like I love you. But when we get towards the end of this relationship and you're not doing what I want you to do, and you're not meeting my expectations, I'm going to tell you that I don't love you anymore, and I've fallen out of love with you. But that's not actual love. That's craving, desire, attachment. That's selfishness. That's attachment. That is, you make me happy, so therefore I want you to be with me, right? And I can only be happy when you're with me. This is craving, desire, attachment masquerading as love. So it sounds like you have some of that where people are expecting you to do certain things and wanting you to be a certain way. What we would all like to get to is where we have unconditional love, where we love people unconditionally. We don't want anything from them. We don't expect anything from them. We're not requiring anything of them. And we're not putting our expectations on them to be any particular way. We just love this person as they are. What love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, right? So if you have a life partner, if you have friends, you have family, you would like to love them as they are, realizing that they're going to make decisions differently than you, and that's okay. Because you can love the person while disagreeing with their choices and decisions. Oftentimes people get this confused. They think that if somebody makes decisions differently than you can't love them. You can't be in a relationship with them because they're doing things differently than you. This is just impermanence. Not everybody's going to make decisions the same way as you. It's only you that's going to make decisions the same way as you. So if you can only love people who make decisions the same way as you can only love one person, and that's yourself. And you might even find that hard to do sometimes because you might have this negative self-talk in your mind degrading you and diminishing you. So if you can only love people who make decisions your way, then you can only love yourself. And sometimes that's challenging to even love yourself. So you would like to get to the point where you love people as they are, meaning you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. So that's why all of you, I can love all of you. Right? I don't want anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. I just love you as you are. I'm here to help you to learn how to grow and develop on this path, but I love you as you are. There's nothing you have to do for me. There's nothing I want from you. There's nothing I'm requiring of you. I just love you as you are. Right? And that's what you would like to practice more and more. And as you practice that more and more, the people around you will start learning how to practice that as well. So the first step to your solution is you need to learn what true love is really, really well. In volume 1, chapter 15, there's a whole chapter about true love. And I've given talks for an hour and a half about true love. So you'd like to study chapter 15 because you need to learn what true love is and you need to practice it. Because whatever you put out is going to come back to you. If you're putting expectations on other people, people are going to put expectations on you. But if you can learn true love, unconditional love, and you can practice this more and more, then you will see the people around you slowly but surely over time will learn what true love is because they experience it from you, and more they will practice that. That's the first part. Then once you understand what true love is and you're practicing it with other people, in your relationships, you're going to need to decide, is this a relationship that I'm committed to and I would like to see improve, or I'm not committed to this relationship at all? Because there's certain relationships in your life right now that you might be holding on to that it's better to just let go of and walk away from. And there's some relationships that are like that. And it's only you that can decide that. But then there's other relationships that you're more committed to. Maybe your life partner, like you said. Maybe your parents and siblings and stuff like this. Maybe you're more committed to this relationship. You need to first work on your mind and learn true love and practice that for an extended period of time so you really deeply know what it is and you're practicing it. And then at some point, if you think that they will heed your advice, it can be wise to sit down and talk with them. Don't put your expectation on them that you expect them to practice true love, because that would be not true love, right? So you would like to sit down and just have conversations with them and helping them understand, but they have to be interested in that. If they're not interested in that, you can't help them. They're going to need to decide at some point that they're interested in learning what true love is, and then to be able to learn that from you or from a book like I write, or videos or podcasts or things like that. They can learn it that way. So if it's a relationship you're more committed to, you might choose to actually help them to learn and grow and develop to understand what true love is. And then there's a third category of relationships, which are brand new people that you've never actually met before. You don't even know their names right now, and you'll only ever be loving and kind with those people because you figured out how to practice true love, and now you'll only be practicing true love with people, and then that's what people will be practicing with you. So these are the three categories of relationships. One is people who you're not committed to, and you're having, I'm about to sneeze. You're having difficulties and challenges in those relationships, and you need to just let go and move on. And then there's relationships you're more committed to, and you would like to maybe put a pause on this relationship, step away for a little bit, work on your own mind, learn about true love, practice that better, and now you can sort this relationship out with helping them to learn a bit about true love. If they're open to it, they may not be open to it. And then there's this third category relationship, brand new relationships. You've never even met these people yet. You don't even know their names. You'll only ever be loving and kind with them, and that's what you'll experience coming back to you. But most of us grew up in an environment where we don't understand true love because our parents are oftentimes putting expectations on us and trying to control us and try to get us to do the things that they want us to do. So because you think that your parents are loving you and they're putting expectations on you, when you go into relationships with a boyfriend or girlfriend or other people like this, you might think that that's what love is, and that's what you're doing. You might be putting expectations on people around you. And this is one of the reasons why your relationships keep breaking and you keep ending up in broken relationships. So this is why you need to start with first understanding that your parents probably have true love in their mind. They probably love you as you are, but they've got this cravings, desires, attachments that are polluting that true love. And it's hard for you to experience their true love because they're putting these expectations on you constantly. And that's who you're learning about love from, is your parents. So if your parents are constantly controlling you, or even just a little bit putting your expectations on you, you're going to be very confused in your own mind about what love is, and you don't have that wisdom. So that's why you got to start with deeply understanding what true love is and practicing that really well. And then you can decide for yourself, which type of relationship am I in here? Am I interested to let it go? Am I interested to work on it? And they're going to need to do some work too. Or is it a brand new relationship and I'm only ever going to be loving and kind in this relationship and just have a genuine interest in seeing this person be well, not wanting or expecting anything from them? Because one aspect of true love is not only not putting your expectations on, not controlling them, but making sure that you understand that they are responsible for their own wellness. Sometimes what we do, like in a relationship as a child or as a life partner, we think we're responsible for mom and dad's happiness. That if mom and dad aren't happy, we need to fix it. Or if boyfriend or girlfriend is not happy, we need to fix it. You can't fix your parents' unfortunate situation with their mind, or your boyfriend or girlfriend. If somebody around you is unhappy, it's their own mind that's causing that. And the only way for them to fix that is to train their own mind. You can't make somebody else happy. If somebody is getting happy because of you, that's called conditional happiness. They will only be happy because of you. But then when you're away from them, they will be sad or lonely or bored or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. That's not true happiness. That's conditional happiness. Like if it's sunny outside, you'll be happy. But then when it's raining, you'll be frustrated, you'll be angry, you'll be irritated because the mind's craving the permanence of the sun. So if somebody's only happy because of you, that means when you're gone, they're not going to be happy anymore. And they're probably going to be blaming you for their anger and their frustration. So you're not interested in making somebody else happy because that's temporary and that's unsatisfactory. So part of true love is understanding that this person being happy is their responsibility. It's not your responsibility to make them happy, because you can't actually make somebody happy. You can help somebody to have conditional happiness, but ultimately that's not satisfying, and it's not what's going to ultimately lead to the permanent joy and the permanent happiness, which is unconditional happiness. That's what an enlightened being is experiencing, is the unconditional happiness and the unconditioned joy. So does that help you, sir? Yeah? Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Okay, anybody else have? Yeah, amen.
Thanks, David. It seems to me that it would be wise to have someone else or something else to, when trying to establish what the middle way is, being as it is so subjective. You know, with an untrained mind, I mean, my mind is prone to distortion and, you know, not really offering me the truth of myself and my environment. So if I try to establish what the middle way is, with an untrained mind, that could look something, you know, quite without balance, say. Do you know what I mean? I'm just wondering when my middle way bumps up against maybe conventional wisdom, you know, what we'd be taught. I mean, I could sit here. I was thinking I was going to say to you that, you know, maybe lying in bed all day smoking cigarettes could feel like the middle way to someone who's relieving themselves of an addiction to yoga and green smoothies or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could feel like that. But of course, and that may be a middle way for someone, but if I bump up against conventional wisdom, which says, you know, lying in bed all day and smoking cigarettes, that isn't good.
Yeah.
So to have someone else with me as I try to think, oh, my new middle way is this, and someone will go, actually, that's off the wall, you know? I mean, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So that's why I gave you the indication of the way that you'll know you're in the middle is when the mind is peaceful and joyful. It'll almost be like you've taken a breath of fresh air. That when you're sitting in bed, smoking cigarettes all day, laying in bed all day, smoking cigarettes, the mind's not going to be peaceful and joyful in that situation. And that's how you know you're not in the middle way. So whenever you experience discontentedness, like anger and frustration and sadness and all these other discontent feelings, that's how you know you're not in the middle. And I wrote this thing several years ago that if you guys would like to read this, or if you'd like me to read it to you, I can read it, because this is me describing what to do in order to bring the mind to the middle and know that you're actually there.
Just on that, thank you. Yeah, I've had friends in the past, and one particular has just come to my mind. He's a big guy, you know, really big guy. He's misuse or abusing food. You know, in some level, there's a misuse of food, and I got to know him well, and he's a good guy, and I was quite concerned. But I see his family, and he comes from a family of big people, a generation of misusing food. And I think I didn't feel comfortable ever saying to him, like, you know, I'm worried about what you're eating, and you're like obese, morbidly obese. I think he just thought it was the middle way or the norm or whatever it was within his house, his family, and that generation. It was like we get a lot of delivered food. We like this type of food, and we're all not well. We're all on a whole shelf of medication. And I think if I had said anything, I felt I'm really intruding here on somewhere it's none of my business. You know, I would have been met with a bit of yeah.
If that's the case, where someone is eating excessively and that's why they've gained weight, then I would say that individual doesn't know the middle way. They haven't practiced the middle way, where you're eating in moderation. You know, that's what the middle way would be in that particular scenario. So that individual doesn't know the middle way. They don't understand that, and that's why they're eating that way. So this is a way that you can apply this in your day-to-day life to something like eating. And that's another great example of how to apply the middle way, and that would be to eat in moderation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's on now.
Now it's on.
Yeah.
Yeah, mentioning smoking cigarettes and cravings and attachment and desire. Like, I haven't smoked for over 10 years, but I definitely used to. What is the difference between ignoring a craving and having this craving all the time and developing a habit of completely ignoring it and not responding to it? Can one cross the line between having that craving and permanently ignoring it and not having that craving at all? And if so, how does one go about that? Like, after, I still have cravings for cigarettes. I still love cigarettes. And if I gave into those cravings, I would lie in bed all day smoking cigarettes. Mm. But I don't. I choose not to. How do you cross the line between choosing not to do this or just not having the desire to do it at all? Does that make sense?
Yep, sure does. So in order to eliminate a craving, desire, attachment, the very first thing you need to do is distance yourself from it, where you distance yourself from the craving, desire, attachment. So for example, cigarettes, you're distancing yourself from that. You haven't had a cigarette for 10 years. But then you need to actually train your mind to extinguish it and destroy it, which you haven't done yet in relationship to cigarettes, as you're saying, because you just don't have the wisdom of how to do that. That's where the meditation comes in. That's where the practice of generosity comes in. And that's where the Eightfold Path comes in. You need to be able to extinguish this craving, because cravings can go dormant for a period of time, or they're just kind of under the surface, and then they can raise their head back up again. That's where someone could go not drinking for 20, 25 years, and then they start drinking alcohol again, or cigarettes, or something like that. And you're not interested in that. But in that situation, the person hasn't actually extinguished the craving. They've just distanced themselves from it. And the craving is still there. They haven't done the training with the breathing, mindfulness, meditation, the generosity, and all the other aspects of the Eightfold Path to actually stomp it out. And the Buddha talks about it as obliterating it or destroying it. He talks about cutting it off like a palm stump. If you know what they do here in Thailand is they have these palms and they will cut them very close to the ground. And that's what you would like to do, is really extinguish it. You might think of it like a wild bush, where what you're doing is you're cutting back this wild bush, but you would actually like to uproot it and get it out of the mind, because that ensures that it doesn't ever grow back. Whereas if you just cut off the weed, the root is still there. So that's what you've done, is you've cut off the weed, you stopped the smoking, but the root is still there. The craving is still there. The way you uproot it is with breathing, mindfulness, meditation, generosity, and all the other steps of the Eightfold Path. And then you won't have those cravings any longer. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So this brings us to the end of today's class, where I would like to share something with you guys that you may or may not be aware of that has been going on here for the last month or so at the temple. And if you guys would like to get involved with this, you're more than welcome to. There is a group of students who have come together, and they donated a significant amount of money to be able to help us to be able to refurbish our classroom downstairs. So over the last month or so, we've been working on a project downstairs to refurbish this classroom, and it's basically done. And about a month ago, at the end of a class like this, there was a bunch of students who came together and helped us to move everything up here to our temporary classroom. And this is our last class in our temporary classroom. And now what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be bringing the stuff from here down into our classroom, because it's now been refurbished. On Wednesday, we're going to have a grand reopening at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, which you guys are all invited to. You're welcome to come. We're going to have a ribbon cutting celebration. We're going to do meditation together. I'm going to teach you guys some things about temple construction and why it's important to take care of temples and things like this. We're going to have some great cakes. They're going to have some amazing cheesecakes and carrot cakes, and it's all vegan stuff. And we're going to have some great time to just socialize with each other. You guys are welcome to come and bring your friends if you'd like. But if you would like to get involved in this, I would like to invite you if you'd like to. I'm not wanting you to. I'm not expecting you to. But if you would like to help us to be able to bring some stuff from here down into our classroom, this will surely help us to bring stuff down into the classroom. When we did this, when we were downstairs, it took us all of like 10 or 15 minutes to bring everything up here. Where if there was like 1 or 2 people doing it, it'd probably take 3 days to bring everything downstairs, right? Where with a lot of us doing it, it's actually really manageable. So if you'd like to get involved in this. And when I end class today, you're welcome to stick around because I'll give you guys some guidance on what we need to do in order to be able to kind of move things downstairs. And if you're not interested in helping, that's completely fine too. I thank you for coming to class. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being interested in practicing the teachings of the Buddha. Perhaps we'll see you guys in one of these future classes. As I mentioned on Wednesday, we're going to have our grand opening and we're going to do some meditation and some teaching there. And then on Saturday and Sundays, we have classes here as well. And you're going to see a whole range of classes starting again because now our learning center downstairs is ready for us. So you can see the schedule over there that we have a whole class, our whole month of classes and courses and retreats that are all available to you at no cost. You can learn here in Chiang Mai if you're in Chiang Mai, but even if you travel, you can also learn because I live stream all the classes that I do. And everything's available for you at no cost. We have books and videos and podcasts. We have audiobooks. You can get personal guidance. If you would like to get rid of your anger and your sadness and frustration and the guilt and the shame and the fear and the stress and anxiety and all these other feelings, there's help for you here. You just need to decide you would like to get that help, because even the books and things like this, you can get them online for free. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for that, or you can get them on Amazon if you'd like to get them on Amazon. So if you do decide to help us, thank you so much for your help. And if you're not able to, I understand, no worries. Again, I love you unconditionally. I have no expectations of you. So whatever you do, have a wonderful and lovely rest of your day, and we'll see you next time, okay? Sawadee Kap.